Alright, so with the deadlift, the most important thing is that you keep your natural S-curve on your spine. So that means that natural arch you have in your back is there the whole time. So no matter if you're standing up, if you're bent over all the way, that natural S-curve is there. The way to teach that natural S-curve, the first place you should start is really with the hip hinge. Basically, the hip hinge is you start by going back. The second you start moving back at the hips, your knees will bend, and you're going to actually push in, so you're about a foot away from the wall and your butt touches the wall. At the end, you should be at a perfect deadlift position. The arms should be straight down, and you would stand straight up, squeezing the butt at the top. So basically, pushing at your hips until your butt hits the wall, and keeping that natural S-curve in your spine, chest up, shoulder blades back. That's basically the deadlift. So once you get that, so you'd start with your hands on your hip bones, push back into the wall, standing about a foot away from the wall. At the end, you would be perfect. So you would start off real light when learning the deadlift, just to get the movement down. Again, you're going straight back at the hips, bending at the knees once you do. And at the end, you should be looking down at the wall, neck packed. So basically, you're not looking up, you're not looking down, you're looking in a neutral position, and you're coming all the way up. When you're learning, you're not going to stay down there, no matter what you're doing, because most likely you're going to round your back if you stay down there. So if there's any 2 points to keep, it's butt back, chest up. So butt back, chest up the whole time. If you do those 2 things, you will have a good deadlift form. Things to avoid when doing the deadlift is you don't want to make it into a squat. So you don't want to come down. I've seen people with the hip hinge, they'll come down and they're hitting the wall, but it's a squat. It's no longer a deadlift. So remember, you're keeping your hips up as high as you can, and it's a slight bend from the knees. Your shins should be vertical, slightly bent possibly, but really vertical. In a squat, they're forward. So you want your shins to remain vertical the whole time, not bent forward. If you do that, you'll have a good deadlift. So single arm clean and press with a dumbbell. For beginners, I don't really care about too many details with beginners. My big thing is, as long as you keep that natural S-curve, when you go down, you're coming up, and it ends overhead. That's my big thing. Keep that natural S-curve, starts on the ground or as low as you can go while keeping that curve. Bring it up to your shoulder and pop up. Once you've been doing it for a while and you can really keep that natural S-curve really easily, from there it becomes more about technique. So technique then comes, you're popping from the hips, extending at the trap at your shoulder, letting your arm come up, dropping under, standing up, dipping, and then pressing. But at the beginning, all I care about beginners is that you end it overhead. I don't care if you sort of make it into a snatch or a single arm clean and press, as long as you keep that natural S-curve. Once you get good enough, or if you have access to kettlebells, you want to use kettlebells for this movement. The same motion is the same, so you're squatting down, keeping that natural S-curve, you're exploding up, ending up by your shoulder, and then the press, you're dipping, keeping the weight in your heels, and going straight up. Back down slow, back down to the ground. So up fast, up overhead. And then obviously you do the other side, same concept, explode up fast, and all the way up. Most people have a weaker side, which is usually their left if they're righty. With that, the form becomes more important because if it gets heavy and you're weaker on this side, you'll start having technical errors that you could fix with good technique. Most people, when doing it with a dumbbell, most women at least, they'll try to curl it up at the beginning instead of using their hips as their source of power and letting their arm go up for the ride. Same thing, they try to make it into one motion, so they're still bringing up the weight, dipping down and trying to explode up. They're going to bother their shoulder if you do that. So really, you want to make sure you're exploded up. You want to stand, hold here for a second, dip down, and then press. If you do it while a lot of people come up and dip down and try to press in one quick motion, which is fine, but once the weight gets heavier, you're not going to be able to do that. So you want to take that second, stand up, dip, and then press. And that way, you can go heavier, you can bring it down a little slower. So you can go heavier, bring it down a little slower, which will help build up your eccentric strength. So basically, the strength when you're coming back down to the starting position, and that will make you stronger overall. Chest press motion. You want your arms, your wrists to be in line with your upper arm. So if you're out in a nice high T, you want your wrist there. If you're close to your body, you want your wrist there. Most presses, you want a V. So that means the wrist is nice and straight, you're down in a V. That's a V. All the way down. From this motion, you can have a lot more power to explode up, press up. So you're not up here, you're not here. And your wrists are not turned. Your arms in a V, your wrists are in line. So they're not out here, they're not in. So take that to a chest press or incline chest press. Same concept in a V on the bottom. Nice and locked out at the top. So V at the bottom, wrist right underneath your upper arm, pressing straight up. Yeah, so down nice, slow, and controlled, and you want to go up with a little bit more power to it. So down nice, slow, and controlled, up with a little bit more power. Fairly simple. As long as you have that natural S curve, you could get this motion pretty easily. So you're going to add the front squat. So kettlebell clean, stay up nice and tight, and you're going down all the way with the front squat. Front squat, you want to make sure you're not turning your wrist. So you want to stay nice and tight, your wrist should stay straight. When you're holding the kettlebells, and chest up nice and tight, back nice and tight, squatting all the way down and up. With the squat itself, you really want to squat down below parallel. I don't know if I was dropping that low. Your knees are in line with your toes, so basically they're tracking your toes, so wherever your knees go, wherever your toes are pointing, that's where your knees are going. And that's about it. All right, so single arm dumbbell row, you see a lot of people do it on a bench with their back leg straight, back straight, and then they come up and row, which is fine. I don't mind that one, but really, I like killing a couple birds with one stone. With this, I like to do on the side of the bench, and you're going to practice really the deadlift motion. So you're hinging back at the hips, keeping that back straight, and then you're going to use your arm for support. The weight's going to be in the middle, and you're coming up all the way to your side. So keep that elbow close to your body, all the way down, all the way up. The reason why I like this a little bit more than the one on the bench is because you actually get used to staying in that position with that natural S curve, so that it sort of transfers to your brain that when you're doing the deadlift, to keep that natural S curve. With this, it's the same thing. So the motion is legs nice and wide, a little wider than shoulder width. Hips, you hinge back, you bend from the knees. The second you bend from the hips, you keep that natural S curve. Grab the bench, grab the weight, and then you come up. You could also do this with kettlebell if you only have one. Same thing, same concept. Keep that elbow close to your body, coming up, squeezing from your mid-trap, rhomboid area. You might also feel in your shoulders, your forearms might get tired, your arms might get tired, but nonetheless, you're also working the stabilizer muscles in your lower back. And yeah, swing. You really want to end nice and tight at top. So at the end, you want to be like you're in a plank. So plank, you're going to be on your forearms and toes, but nice and tight, abs nice and tight. And this is where you should be. When you're doing a squat swing, the end position is really the same thing. Abs nice and tight, butt nice and tight, except your arms are fully extended. So that's the end position, nice and tight. You're squeezing your butt up at the top as hard as you can. Then the start position is really straight down. So you want to squat straight down, back's nice and vertical so it's not bent over. Your shoulders should never really come in front of your knees. So you're here, and at the top, you're popping from the hips as hard as you can, top position. So get the motion down, back nice and straight. Again, always keep that natural S-curve in your spine. By doing that, you allow yourself to stay vertical, pop from the hips. It's really a hip movement, like you're being singed with something and you're popping, squeezing the butt as hard as you can. With that said, you would pick up the kettlebell, you would squat straight down, and you would pop the first one, and popping from the hips each time.